Welcome to the GSMC Business News Podcast, the show dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning business, technology, and the stock market. Get a head start on the day as we keep you updated on the latest goings-on Wall Street, money, jobs, and technology. If you're looking for a podcast to keep you informed and ahead of the game in business, the GSMC Business News Podcast has you covered.
Thanks for tuning in to GSMC Business News Podcast, powered by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'll be your host, Moriah, and today we're going to be discussing the cannabis industry. I think it's an awesome time to discuss this. A lot of laws and regulations have been underway and have been passed. Medicinal usage in different cities across the United States. Other countries have been they've been on this wave. I think the U.S., I would say the U.S. has been, cautious, but also very slow with joining the ranks when it comes to cannabis, the industry, selling, distributing, production. Oftentimes this has been seen as something that's very terrible. If you look back over the media in years past, there's been a lot of opinion pieces discussing marijuana and how it's good, bad, and different. Some studies that have been done showing how effective it is when it comes to, health reasons. It can help with arthritis, different issues with your eyes, things of that nature. Some that have been using it, I want to say since the hippie era, have said they feel like it keeps them very young. So you have a lot of different opinions on the usage of marijuana. So today I felt like we should discuss that. The industry is ballooning. As if you've been looking around you, there are different type of groups that you can be a part of. You can also, sell food with that's infused with THC. That's the main ingredient that a lot of folks are looking for in marijuana. There's also CBD. So if you're looking for more of the calming effects as opposed to the euphoric effect that THC may give you, CBD oil may be better. Normally when it comes to medical usage, it's more so the CBD. So I figured that, this topic is a pretty good one. A lot of different opinions. So it's always a nice little debate piece. And of course, we're going to be discussing the industry side of it, not just the usage and, the opinions of those who may be against it or who may be for it, but more so how the industry is doing. But in order to do that, I got to give some history. So we'll be talking just briefly about some history of the cannabis industry. We'll get into some different sectors within it. So if you're thinking about joining the industry, or if you're interested in, being hired to be a part of the industry, that's something that I'll be discussing. And then we're going to get into how you can start your own cannabis business if that's what you're into. And then, of course, we always get into our hometown heroes. All right, there's some folks I think who are doing the cannabis industry the right way. It's, previously it was anything to do with marijuana was definitely seen as something bad and illegal. A lot of individuals have seen criminal charges and have faced time because of the mass, I would say, distribution of the drug. So there's been some legal issues concerning the topic of marijuana, and that's why I think a lot of people have shied away from the industry. Not realizing that it is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and there's, I believe, a lot of growth to be had. So with that being said, I just had to give that background because that is one of the talking points when it comes to legalizing marijuana usage, so that, and also, creating job opportunities for individuals. You have to discuss the legal side of it, because a lot of individuals that, I've read their stories, some people that I actually know, they have gone to jail for doing what they believe is the same exact thing, growing and selling of marijuana. So they might have been doing that on the street level, and now it's become legal in many, many states. So, there is always going to be I would say, the political side of this topic, because you have different sides and different angles. And that's something to consider when getting into business. You want to think of, is this something that I'm willing to take on? Selling marijuana is very, very different than, selling, customized cups, right? Or printed t-shirts. It's a very different, it's much, much heavier regulation. I would say it's more of a fine-tooth comb process. So, that you can't have a certain background and attempt to join this industry. And also, on another note, the stock in the industry, a lot of wealthy individuals are looking to see how they can invest. So you might, if you've had any issues with finances, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to become a part of this. And I understand the reason for it, and I do believe it's with good cause, because of the background, the history that the plant has had, especially in our country. So I understand the reason for the heavy regulation. So we're just going to discuss some different topics within the industry, just to give you an idea. You might not be able to actually, run a store that sells the products, but you might be able to help with investing. You might have a good eye, for what's out there. You might be able to start your own investment firm and things of that nature. So there's plenty of ways that you can get into the industry. I know when people, from my research of the topic, a lot of people think that, there's no way I'll be able to sell marijuana. When you think about legally selling drugs, that's how it's seen in the minds of those on the outside looking in. But when you really think about it, it's really an industry like any other industry. There is a demand for a product, and you can become the one that can supply the demand and keep up with the customer orders. So it depends on perspective, right? Everything comes down to perspective. So, understanding the shadows of, where it came from back in the day and how it was frowned upon and things of that nature. But, it's taking roots in a lot of different other areas, not just in the cannabis industry. It's in healthcare now. It's considered, part of pharmaceuticals, consumer goods. A lot of individuals can sell, what is considered paraphernalia. So if you live in a state or a place where you can actually purchase the plant itself, there's some things that go with it. I like to think of them as attachments. I used to work in cell phones, so you would sell the main product, and then there was always some attachments that would go with it. Some places are able to sell that. In other states and cities, again, it goes down to that government regulation. It depends on where you're at and if that's allowable. So you might want to think about, if you're getting into the industry, you might want to think about what you can do where you are, or do you need to relocate for business? Those are some things to keep in mind. So, you just want to remember that, public companies with, valuations, and they're going up and people are able to buy stock in it now. This industry is really growing, and, a lot of different type of companies are looking to see how they can become a part of this industry. It's still very, very new. The idea of legally being able to sell cannabis or to work within the industry, I want to say, even with me, I didn't think I would see it in my lifetime because of the things that were happening around the country concerning the usage of the plant. So now that it's become more stabilized, more centralized, and they're, the industry experts are figuring out different ways to actually market this. and being able to really show the good side of cannabis use and taking away the stigma behind the product that they're looking to sell. It's still a very, very small, I would say, time frame where it's been in this place of, emerging and growing. So very, very new. I would say it's definitely something that you can hop into. It's still in the new phases. I consider it similar to crypto. There's believers in it, there's non-believers, but it keeps growing despite all of it. So I would say it's definitely something that you should think about joining, especially if you have history in some of those other sectors that I mentioned, like healthcare and pharmaceuticals and, agriculture, farming. The farming market, the industry has taken a hit, so you might need to change the type of farming that you do. This might be the area for you. So I would say, knowing all of those numbers and understanding how many, based off Gallup poll reports, 68% of American adults support the legalization of marijuana. And it was that's a big jump, because I want to say maybe 40 to 30 years prior to that, it was around 20% of American adults believed in it. So the more, the more knowledge that gets put out there, the more times are changing. More Americans, adults, and consumers are looking for different ways to help with different ailments. Some individuals like to have a nice drink. You might like to have a nice edible. For me, I'm always loving the different ways it's helping in the healthcare industry. I have my little experience with healthcare, so knowing that this plant is actually being used to help those in need, I think is really cool. And there's a way for new, avenues of money to be made. A lot of people are looking for jobs right now because of the pandemic. So this might be that type of industry that, you might want to hop into. I think it's really good. And if you're not into it, you might still have your hesitations. I say invest. It's going to continue to grow. So, while it's still new, I always say, while something is new, it's the best time to hop in. A lot of states are starting to legalize the recreational use, so it's not even medicinal purposes anymore. Now they're starting to, say, hey, if this is like that nice drink after work, you might have a puff of your favorite product that your local dispensary is selling. States like New Jersey, Montana, New York, they're starting to legalize it now. I was reading some jokes on Twitter and seen some memes floating around. Like, I don't know if I want to even do recreational cannabis usage anymore now that it's legal. It just doesn't feel real yet. So it's interesting to see how government regulation plays a huge part in business and the free market. A lot of business heads would say they don't like the fact that governments can regulate what they can do, especially when we live in a society where if I think of a product and I want to make money off of it, I can just go and make a business. It's really that simple. Now, paperwork obviously is always the part that delays things, but it's really quick and easy to get into business. But when you have governments regulating it, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And this industry is one of the ones that's being heavily regulated by government. As you can see, the states are legalizing it on their own terms. So if that state doesn't vote to legalize it, it won't be legalized in that state. So if you're in that state and you're looking to maybe get into the industry, you might have to think about, again, like we mentioned briefly, relocating. I've seen some stories and I've done some research, and a lot of people had definitely moved. I want to say it was a wave of individuals moving to Colorado, and, in some other places looking to join this industry. You see the good and the bad with it, especially when something that was once illegal becomes legalized. There's a time period that's always going to happen where it's that industry is trying to get its footing. Even if you think about prohibition days, right? So, it's going to take some time for it to really plant its feet. But money is being made in this industry. I've seen dispensaries pop up very, very quickly. Once it was legalized, those business people who were waiting for something new to invest in, they hopped on it very, very quickly. So, it's the support has gone up. It might have started as a bad thing in the eyes of some people, but the support has gone up. The dispensaries are starting to open up. The way that it crosses into different fields. That's something that's still very new, but there's been studies going on for years trying to test the effects of it. I think at this point, industry experts have convinced enough people with enough cases to say, hey, this is not as bad as we're making it out to be. This can actually be a very good thing, especially for those with, I come from the aspect of the healthcare. I think those with ailments, if we know that there is a bomb that can be, for business purposes, that can be sold and distributed, and at the end of that, even though money is to be made, someone is still being helped. I think that's a really good thing. So I'm definitely a supporter of the industry. And with that being said, we're going to just take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to keep discussing the cannabis industry. I'll be talking about more detailed breakdowns of the different sectors within the industry. All right. So stay locked in. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for a podcast that gives you all of the latest news from the world of finance? Then check out the GSMC Financial News Podcast. We'll delve into the ups and downs of the stock market, changes in the economy, and news from the world of real estate and technology. From breaking news on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, or the overseas market, to updates on the bond market, if there's money to be made, we'll cover it on the GSMC Financial News Podcast.
Today we're going to be discussing the cannabis industry. We briefly touched on a little bit of the history of it, how, as we all know, there was a little bit of a stained scene. A lot of individuals didn't believe in the usage of it. They thought it was a very, very bad thing. There were media news write-ups about the plant usage and how it was affecting the teenage culture, the young American culture at the time, especially, during what we know as the hippie movement. I think the hippies had this part right, though. I think so. Now that we can see that this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, there's investors, there's pharmaceutical companies looking to join forces, there's healthcare companies looking to join forces. Some people who are in different types of sales jobs and roles are looking to switch over to the cannabis industry. So I think, maybe, just maybe, if we could have got this legalization of it, especially the recreational use moving forward more quickly, I think we would have been at the $1 trillion mark by now. I'm just, that's the way I see it. But we have it all underway now, so, I like to check out the different stocks in the company and the different companies that are out there. A lot of individuals who are into farming are looking to, maybe switch roles, switch gears, and get into this type of farming. It takes a lot of biology and understanding and knowledge. And as far as business goes, it would take a lot of sales and marketing. I would say more so marketing than anything. I think this is the type of product that will sell itself in a sense because it's in demand from, a lot of individuals. But I would say that marketing it in a way that kind of reduces that stigma that it has and gives the benefits of it and how it's actually a good thing. I think it would take a good team. So you want to have that in mind, all right? So, speaking on that, let's just get into a little bit of the different types of, industries within the industry, if you will. Starting a small business in the marijuana industry. Now's the time. Again, things are becoming more and more legal. And you can start a dispensary. You can, again, farm. You can be in marketing. You can help people, grow their business who have experience. You can help people find investors. One of the biggest ones is done by normally large companies is the marijuana producing. There are plenty of consumers who prefer a product grown in a more personal setting, but you're going to have those type of companies who can mass produce, again, depending on how much capital you have. So it's a good choice for anyone that's interested in, growing plants, because you can start as big or small as you'd like. Again, a lot of consumers like to know who's growing the plant, and, a lot of businesses are getting more and more personal. A lot of consumers want to know who the face is behind the brand. So you may want to start small to kind of grow those legs in the community. And then from there, you can begin to grow larger and larger. But, it really depends on what you're looking to do in your business need at the time. So if you have the time and the space to have, a farm, I say go for it. It's nothing wrong with being a plant mom or dad. It takes a lot of work to grow plants. I don't have a green thumb at all, so I wouldn't be in the production part of it if I were to join the industry. Right now, I'm just looking to invest in some of the companies, because the green thumb is just, I just don't have it. Shout out to everybody who has it though, right? This may be the job for you. So, it's more difficult than you realize, but, just educate yourself, understanding the conditions necessary for the plant to thrive, the type of sun and, the type of light, how much, care does it need? Do you need to clip the ends? Do you need to, get rid of that plant because there's just no hope for it? Can you grow, can you use the seeds from that plant? Is it a female plant? Is it a male plant? Normally in the industry, from my understanding, the female plants are more desirable because of the way that they grow the flower. So, that's something that you need knowledge in. Education, I say, is always key, especially in business. You can have the greatest product in the world, but if you don't have the knowledge behind it, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to convince others that it's good for them, because this is something that's being ingested or being consumed. So because of that, you just want to be mindful of what you know, how you're growing things of that nature. So that may be for you. If you're sitting there thinking like, I want to be on the side that actually grows it from the seed phase to, it's now ready to be picked. That might marijuana producing might be for you. Then you have the processing. So, if you don't want to deal with that green thumb hassle of, gardening, you might want to process it. And that's what I meant by the ones that maybe, pick the plant. It's extracting the pieces that you need for preparing it for consumption. That those are the type of skills that I think we're going to see be on job qualifications in some years to come. Because, to me, it's no different than an orange farm, apple farm. It's just a bunch of apple trees and you have to actually pick the apples. You have to pick pineapples. That takes skill. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to move quickly. So I think that this is going to be one of those things, the processing. I think that's going to be a job that's going to be in demand soon. Because, who has the skills and the patience to really sit, and cut and, clip ends and, put it in, maybe baskets or whatever, that farm specifically does. That takes a lot of patience. I don't think I have that either. You see why I'm just looking to invest right now? I think this is a job that will be a career for a lot of people. One of those type of things. It's a job, it's work. But I think this is going to be pretty fulfilling for a lot of individuals. A lot of people have been waiting for this day to come. So, this might be the time for you. In most states, you do need a license to handle this, because you're actually touching it. And, you're actually dealing with it. directly. So there's some regulations that go into it. So that's something to keep in mind. And then another way that you can get into it will be on the delivery side. So have you ever transported any other things? Have you ever worked for a logistics company where you had to deliver goods? Have you ever delivered, pharmaceuticals? Have you ever done medicine drop-offs before? Things of that nature. This may be something for you, because you do have to transport it from one place to another. You have to make sure it's at the right temperature so that it doesn't compromise, the potency of the plant. So you want to put those knowledge and those skills to work if you've done it before. You might be able to find a local dispensary where you can do deliveries, or you might find a local farm where you can do the deliveries from the farm to the dispensary, or from the dispensary to possibly the consumer. This may be something for you. You have to look around, you have to shop around. My biggest thing right now has been Instagram. I've been able to find a lot of different, in preparing for this episode, I've been able to find a lot of different dispensaries close to my area that I did not know about. I had no clue. You just kind of see what's on the news, and you kind of, you hear the word of mouth talk about, this dispensary opened and that one opened, but to actually research on something as simple as Instagram and see everything pop up, it was much, much easier. So, that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind. The delivery of it, there is GoPuff, there is Uber Eats, there is DoorDash. So if you're out there and you can figure out a way to get a license to deliver cannabis products, then that may be something for you. You might be the next GoPuff. Who knows? I say someone should hop on it right now, right? It's free game. So something to think about. And then there is the edible industry. So, there's recreational usage being passed in different states. But for some individuals, actually smoking and putting smoke into the body does not sit well with them, but they still want to consume it. So there's one individual I know in my city, and there is at that dispensary, there is an actual tea that you can drink it. There's the CBD, there's the THC. So whatever you prefer. They're medicinal teas, obviously, because recreational use of the marijuana is only in certain places. So for, if you have the medicinal card, you can go and pick out some tea. I think that's pretty cool. So if you're not looking to smoke it, or your consumers, your customers, you might be in your testing phases, and you might have reached out to some potential customers, some potential leads. You're just kind of figuring out, getting a feel for what they actually prefer. They may prefer edible, so that might be something that you get into. If you're really good at baking, and this is something that you're looking to get into, you might want to get into the edible business. I think it's a pretty good way to, get creative in the kitchen. It could be a fun business opportunity. You don't need much to get it started. So I think that's something good to possibly consider. And then you can always sell non-edibles. So, again, not everyone wants to consume the actual plant, like they don't want to eat it. But you can also get into the beauty aspect of it. There's massage oils. I've seen, there's hemp soap. There was hemp black soap. I thought that was pretty cool. I like black soap, so I thought the hemp black soap. When I saw that online, I thought that was a pretty good idea. There was some oils that help with pain and anxiety, and it's infused with the plant. You can make lotion. I've seen body oils. I've also seen someone experimenting with almost like an aerosol spray, similar to, I don't want to say a spray. Well, they were playing around with a few ideas, but one was more so like a room oil, so you can have a heated candle and you pour your essential oils into the candle and it kind of fills up the room. someone was looking to do maybe like a perfumed version of that, but have it infused with some of the plant. I thought that was very interesting, very creative. I'm not sure I would actually purchase that. But I thought that was very creative. In business, you have to be creative, especially as an entrepreneur. You always have to be thinking of what's next. What does somebody actually want? What is the consumer that's not being thought about? Because they're not the majority. What do they want? Right? And that's what you kind of grow. You kind of build your market around that specific, a very fine, detailed niche market. So, again, like we stated, this is not much different from any other industry. I know the stigma behind cannabis has not always been great, but to me, it's the same as, maybe selling candy. You might have chocolate that you want to sell. It's the same way. And if you're looking to get into cannabis, you can infuse your chocolate with cannabis, and that might be something that you want to sell. So it's a lot of different things that you can do, but you have to be licensed. That's the biggest thing, especially if you're looking to you might not actually want to physically touch the product, but you might want to sell the paraphernalia that goes with it. Remember those, like I like to say, the attachments, or as some say, the accessories. So if you're looking to get one of those stores, there has to be certain type of license in place, because, you want to make sure, you always want to dot your I's and cross your T's. You never want it to be said that you're doing anything of this nature illegally. So, that's something that you want to keep in mind. And you could even plan parties. I know some people who party plan for some, like cannabis infused food is on the menu, and there's cannabis infused candy. The drinks are infused with cannabis. So, that's something that you might want to get into. And then there's more so the business, I would say the specific business side of it. There's cannabis consultants. So you can specifically have expertise about the different products, the different accessories but this is to help the business owner. So you might want to be a consultant who is just like a business consultant. You help others, grow their business, but you're specifically for the cannabis industry. So if you have experience in it, you know how to grow a business, that might be the area for you. And then the marketing. I think the biggest way to get the product out there is to have a great marketing team. So your social media marketing team, you want them to help the consumer understand. So a lot of the pages that I've seen that are trying to grow their brand, there's a lot of knowledge-based content given so that consumers are understanding the benefits of the usage of marijuana. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, when you're looking to get into the business. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to get more into the deeper parts of, all right, so I picked the industry I wanted. I think I want to get into selling the accessories in the different stores. Now, how do I get that started? So when we come back from the break, we'll get into all of that. All right, stay locked in. We'll be right back.
Do you work in the world of marketing and advertising? Are you a media buyer or the owner of an agency? Have you been looking for a podcast to help stay on top of all the goings on of those worlds? The GSMC Marketing News Podcast is dedicated to keeping you up to date on all things concerning marketing and advertising. Get the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast has you covered, whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand.
Today we're talking about the cannabis industry. We briefly discussed the history of the industry, how it had a pretty dark stigma attached to it. But the more research has been done, the more the consumers are starting to understand the benefits of the plant, and not just when it gets into the hands of those looking to, use it for some illicit gain. So, now that it has a better look, better vibe, people are starting to understand it. Politicians are starting to understand it. Business folks are starting to better be able to sell it. Consumers are understanding the health benefits of it. The industry is just continuing to grow. It's now at a multi-billion-dollar status. I do think that, some people should begin to invest in it if you're not looking to physically touch it. You might not want to actually be fully consumed in the farming, the producing, or the processing of it. There's different ways that you can sell accessories that go with it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be involved with the industry. And you may be wanting to get into actual business. You might want to open up a dispensary. You might want to open up, an accessory store. You might want to actually have a farm. So these are some of the things to consider when opening up a business. All right, so how do I pick, the right place, for where the business should take place, right? So, the states are legalizing the cannabis businesses to open up, but it's not really that simple. Even a city or a town or a borough, they have their own ruling. Like in Pennsylvania right now, Philadelphia is considered a medicinal city. So while in places like New York, there is recreational use of it as well as in some other places. So, it really depends on where exactly you are. That's why I was saying, if you're thinking about getting into the business, but you may need to relocate, that's something that you want to keep in mind before, just hopping into the water, right? So you probably know, which state already has, its own set of rules. Like some California cities, they allow medical use, businesses, and, a smaller number of, adults have, permit for their counties to run their businesses. There is a few different places, so you just want to do your due diligence, do your research. It's really important to understand the state and local laws of where you live or where you're looking to get your cannabis business started, because you don't want to get into any kind of trouble with that. It's just no reason for it. If you do your due diligence first, you can avoid, trying to set up shop somewhere where it's not, it's not legal. So understanding the policies of where you are, understanding the licenses that you have to apply for to conduct the business, that's important. And you also want to, besides the businessy, the strict paperwork, side of the business, you also want to understand the people in the area that you live. If you live in a city where, it's legal for medicinal use, but a lot of the consumers, in your city, they don't use it for medicinal reasons. They're trying to use it for recreational reasons. And, the rest of the constituents don't really believe in the usage. That might not be the area where you want to set up, an accessory store, for example. So you just want to keep that in mind. It's the physical location matters, but the public demand for what you're trying to sell, that also matters as well. So, you figured out the right city. Now you're trying to figure out, okay, what type of structure, do I want to have, the business under? So when a lot of times when people think about the industry, they automatically think about the dispensaries, the places you go to actually pick out the type of marijuana you're looking to use. But that's just one of the businesses. So like we mentioned, you may want to be one of the producers, so you might want to actually have the farm, or you may want the dispensary. You might want to create an ecosystem of delivery drivers who can, do drop-offs to those. A lot of people use it for health reasons, and you might be one of the people who can assist with that. So you might have a delivery service. It's really important to evaluate the business. Evaluate your experience, your knowledge of the business, and that way you can begin to see what actually makes sense for you to do, because it's a lot of work. It's very I would say it's very labor intensive, especially because it's still new. So you want to keep that in mind. New opportunities in new industries, I would say, is a great thing. But it's also, you know, it's more intense because you never know who's going to come in with a great idea, and just kind of take it and run with it and be very, very successful. You just never know. So you wanna make sure you've picked what's best for you and what's unique to you. And that'd be I would say one of the best ways, to get that business off the ground. Nothing wrong with being, playing it safe, but you want to be creative. So think about that as well, when picking out the different type of structures that you want. And then also make sure, that you have the right license for that type of structure. It's an emerging space. It's ripe with opportunities. So you want to, use your strengths and kind of navigate the market. Now, getting into more so I would say one of the more important aspects is, how do you get licensed? So, a lot of people can enter the industry, but it might not be possible for you to set up shop that quickly, because again, you have to get licensed. Because, that's the first thing you need in order to get the business started. So it's not that it's easy or, inexpensive. It's it takes some money to get into it. So there's a few different licenses that you have to consider. So if you're looking to do dispensaries, you need a license for that. Again, that delivery service, there's a license for that. If you're looking to do indoor and outdoor, there you have to have a license. The manufacturing of it. So again, making those edibles, making those teas, making cookies and cakes, and the food, and hosting those type of parties, definitely have to have a license to do so. There's distribution, there's transportation. There's test sites to make sure that it's actual, the ingredient needed is activated and that it actually works. So that it differs from state to state, and the applications can be a little complex. So you definitely want to reach out to some experts, and it can take months to get completed. It can be very costly depending on what you're looking to do. So again, that capital or the investor is very important. So, keep in mind that a lot of states have different applications. They have multiple applications. You might need an application to have the dispensary and also to sell, different accessories within the dispensary, to negotiate with different farmers and things of that nature. So, make sure you have that business plan. I know I discussed in multiple episodes. You want to have that business plan in place, because you're definitely going to need some investors the more you grow within the industry. Now, how do you build the team? Now, you've figured out the location. You know what type of structure you're looking for. You have your license. Now you have to hire out. So, you can't possibly do this by yourself. There has to be a team with this type of industry. It's so much work involved. I think, making sure that you have the right team in place is going to be very important, and you want to do that kind of early. Normally with other type of lines of business, you can develop the team later on down the line. I would say with this type of industry, you want that team up front. You want to know who can do what. One man isn't an island. You can't do it by yourself. It's just not possible. I mean, you can start that way. Everything, a lot of things start with, just one person in charge, and eventually people add on. But with the type of investment that's needed for this, and with the type of work that and the labor and the back and forth and the paperwork that's involved, you're definitely going to need a team. So you want to maximize on that. Make sure you have a good solid team in place. And then get your market together. So, you want to do your research. That's back to that community. You want to make sure the community is involved. See what they like. I know there's one individual, she hosts some days in the park. So, she sets up different vendors, and you can come and test out the different cannabis products that are being offered, and that's for sale. So that's something that you might want to do just to get a feel for your community, to see if they like what you have, because you might be able to bake good cannabis products, but cannabis, you might not be so great at that. So you want to definitely do a test run, figure out who likes it, who doesn't, and then from there you want to know what problem are you solving. Again, I mentioned the healthcare earlier. I really like the idea that a lot of this can be used to help different ailments. So is that your focus? Are you looking for more so a recreational type of use of it? Are the customers willing to pay, the price that's being presented? I would say it's not something that's considered cheap. This isn't a cheap product. So are the customers willing to pay for it, especially in the area that you're in? And again, do you have the finances to get this business started? You definitely need some capital to get it started. You want to make sure you're making a profit, which is your revenue minus the cost. So how much does it cost to get this started? That depends on how big or how smart you're looking to do. There's some industries, some areas within the industry you can get started under $1,000. But for the most part, you're going to be in the tens of thousands of dollars. So do you have enough to get it started, to get the cost out the way? And then, are you setting your price right so that that you can make that revenue? So that's something that you want to consider. I do believe that the more the states who have made it legal for medical and recreational or all adult use, I think the more success that we see in those areas and the more revenue that those states make, I think other states will begin to understand and begin to hop on it. So right now, a lot of states are medical states, like the state of Pennsylvania that I'm in. I'm in Philly. This state is a medical state. But then right across the bridge in New Jersey, that's, all use. So it's something to keep in mind. But then there's different cities within certain places where recreational use is okay, and then there's cities within certain places where only medicinal usage is okay. So you want to do your due diligence and look up where you are to make sure you're operating properly. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to get into one of my favorite segments of the show, the Hometown Heroes. Just some people who I think are working within this industry and are doing a pretty dope job. All right, so stay locked in. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Again, today we're talking about the cannabis industry. We briefly touched on the history of it. That bad stain, that stigma that the industry had, A lot of individuals didn't see that this was a good thing. They thought that, the marijuana culture or the hippie culture would take over the American culture and that it could, spiral out of control. And then a lot of experts begin to better market themselves, I would say, and better explain the benefits of the marijuana plant and how it's really, helping a lot of people who suffer from physical ailments. The recreational use of it also helps, a lot of people de-stress. A lot of, I would say, in my experience working with some veterans, the usage of marijuana definitely assisted with their PTSD. So I'm from a healthcare perspective, I'm all for the cannabis industry. I've also looked into some stocks and some investing, things of that nature. Just some things that I think, would greatly benefit a lot of individuals. I think if you're an adult and you can make the wise decision that, you want to use something for recreational use, I do understand the need to have government regulation, but I do think that you should be able to do so, just exercising your freedom. Obviously, the government regulation is needed. With anything good, there's also bad. That's just being realistic. Especially in business, we know that for sure. With all the good comes the bad. So just having a way to balance it all out and to make sure that, there isn't room for a monopoly or there isn't room for illegal activity to occur with this new industry, I think is a good thing. I am one of the business minds, I would say, that believes in slight government regulation. Not all for the complete intertwining, but I do think that, especially in cases like this where something that was once illegal is now finding a way to be legal, in specific states, obviously, within the U.S., in some places, medicinal is only, and then there's all use in other states, but then the certain counties and towns are only for medicinal purposes. So, something to keep in mind. Have to be very, very mindful of what you're doing because of that regulation. So that's what we discussed today. I thought this industry was a good industry to discuss. It's definitely a debate-worthy business topic. A lot of times people operate with morals and not just, supply and demand. So it's definitely an interesting topic to discuss. I always charge everyone to do their own research within the industry. You might be interested. You might find a sector of the industry that you think is pretty good, that you might want to join. You might want to work in the farming side of it. If you have a green thumb, I would say that's for you. If you're looking to just process it, so getting it ready to be shipped out to the different dispensaries and things of that nature, you might want to hop in the delivery lane. So you might want to transport it. You might want to keep it, cool under the right temperatures. And then there is also the accessory stores, and there is edible makers. So you might want to bake. You might have a bakery. You might party plan, things of that nature. You might consult. You might be a consultant. You might be a media outlet. You might discuss the news concerning the industry. So there's so many different ways that you can get involved. I always discuss how I like to invest. When it comes to the cannabis industry, a lot of these businesses have just gone public. They haven't been around long. This is still, I would say, it's still one of the babies of the great industries in the world. So there's definitely some ways that you can get involved, and you don't have to actually be present, at the time of consumption, or like those party planners, or you don't have to be at the farm, growing the plants necessarily. There's a few different ways that you can hop on the wave. So with the Hometown Heroes, I just wanted to briefly discuss that. Right across the bridge from me in New Jersey, there's a brand called Green Cell, and they're an agricultural hemp farm company. So it's a family farm. and they support it for, across the board. They love the fact that I would say I love the fact that it's family oriented, and they discuss their family as well. It's definitely a team effort from what I can see. I've done some research on Instagram as well as their website, and just reading up on them and things of that nature. They seem to be growing very well and just really doing the job pretty good. There's jobs in education that they offer. They deliver, from seed to sale. So saying from seed to sale is literally from the seed phase when you're actually growing the plant all the way to being delivered to customers. And then they also, it's important for people to understand how to feed themselves and care for themselves. So the educational portion of it is very important. I think that what they're doing is pretty dope. And I agree with one of the statements that I saw on their website. I thought was pretty cool, and I'm going to read it to you all. So the global research continues to show that very serious ailments from cancer to diabetes, arthritis, weight management, addiction, and severe stress can all be treated to some degree with hemp-derived CBD, and issues that affect all life in 300 plus million Americans. So I totally agree with that. Again, I had a brief stint working with some veterans, and to understand that a lot of them use CBD and cannabis to, relieve some of the postpartum that they may have from, being combat veterans, and even some of the psychological trauma that they may have experienced while serving for our country and keeping us all safe. How we sleep well at night. Our good servicemen are doing a wonderful job, and a lot of times, when they come back home, there is a need for, some type of stress reliever. So understanding that this is definitely helping those in need. And as they stated, diabetes and arthritis and weight management and addiction and things of that nature, this is helping to curb some of that. I think that's an awesome thing. So knowing that they're a farm, that, they actually specialize in making sure they have the right, the right plants being used, and they actually take it very, very, they take what they do very, very seriously. I think that's pretty cool. They also offer some hemp capsules, so you might not want to ingest it as like food. You might not want to use the oil. You might want to take it like a multivitamin. That's kind of how the pill looks on their site, and that's soulcellco.com. They have that on sale on their site. They have some gummies for nighttime, so some individuals might need assistance falling asleep, depending on, for example, if you have sleep apnea and things of that nature. So that's something that you might want to consider. There's a CBD oil, and so it's no THC in it, so you're not going to get that euphoric feel. It's more so just the effect of it and how it can relax the muscles and things of that nature. So they have a few things for sale. They even have a pain gel. They have a body oil. I want to say I saw some lotion on there, some hemp lotion. So I thought that was pretty cool. So shout out to them. I think they're doing an awesome job, especially the way they're marketing themselves. I just happened to stumble upon them one day, and they were, they're pretty open and transparent on their page, and, they discuss being educated within the field and the good benefits of cannabis, and, just making sure they're educating their community. I think that's a pretty dope thing. So shout out to them. Then we're going to take it, to the other side of the country. We're going to hop all the way over to Denver, Colorado, right? There is basically a culture of, some cannabis thinkers and journalists who have a home base in Denver, Colorado. And it's basically, we all know that Denver is like the site of when recreational marijuana was first legalized, and that I want to say it was back in 2014. see if they have it on the site. Yes, January 1st, 2014. That's when Colorado was able to participate in recreational use. So they're definitely, I would say, like the home, at least in the U.S., that's like the home of recreational cannabis use. So a lot of individuals were like flocking to Colorado, to Denver to, get their businesses rolling, get things started. So a group of journalists formed and created the cannabis, and that is just it's like a news hub to discuss people, art, food, and medical inspirational stories, political debates, and different kitchen, as they stated, kitchen triumphs, like we talked about those edibles. So I think that's pretty cool that they're able to, it's basically like a weekly newsletter, and they cover all kind of things, art and, food, different recipes, different accessories that you can get, some business articles, things of that nature. They also allow individuals to pitch stories to them. So, for example, if your state just was legalized, you may be a journalist in your city, you might want to reach out to them and kind of collaborate. I like the fact that they allow others to, to submit some stories to them. And then they also list, a calendar, and they discuss different places, across the country who are having or hosting different cannabis events. So I thought that was really cool. They're an edition of the Denver Post, so I thought that was pretty awesome. So shout out to the cannabis. They keep you up to date with different things on the market, different products being sold, things of that nature. I thought that was pretty cool. A lot of people want to get into the industry, but they're not really sure if they have, a skill set that's needed. Again, this is like any other industry, so there's always going to be the need for press coverage. So I think the fact that the cannabis, it's basically, they go everywhere. And like I said, they have a calendar, and it's filled with different cities, different events that's going on. So I thought that was pretty cool, something to check out. So when you have some time, check out the cannabis. I think what they're doing is pretty awesome. And then for the last one, I didn't even know that. That's funny. Again, like I was stating earlier, sometimes you're just not aware of what's going on. There's so many businesses popping up right now. So I try to do my best to keep up with what's around me. But I like to, see different states and cities and see what they're doing. And I was looking up some information on this one brand called Cannabis Noir, and I wasn't sure. I couldn't figure out where they were located, but I really liked what they stood for. Come to find out, the owner is a Philly native. I thought that was really, really cool. So shout out to the owner, Sheena Robertson. She's the founder of the company, and the company provides education and resources to minorities who are looking to join the industry. So if you remember earlier in this episode, we discussed how it can be a little bit of a financial burden to join the industry. It can cost in the thousands to get things started, especially if you're looking to get into the farming area of the cannabis industry. You're looking to spend a pretty good amount of money. So what Cannabis Noir does is they educate those who are looking to get in the community on the industry and what's needed. So they're basically creating the space that they would like to see, as they state. And she's an entrepreneur and a consultant, over a decade of experience, and she's helped some established startups already, some startups that are getting started. She helped them as well. So, just educating those minorities, letting them know what's needed, how to get in the industry, if you need some help getting, maybe hosting an event, you might not be sure. You might have an idea on what to do, but you're not really sure what to do or how to go about it or where to go from there. You might want to reach out to that brand. A lot of times getting started in business can be pretty simple. But when you're getting into an industry like the cannabis industry, you just want to make sure you have the right consultants and the right team around you so that you're moving properly, you're filling out the proper paperwork. It can be a high level stress career as well. So you definitely want to have a team of consultants around you who can help you navigate, right? So shout out to the Hometown Heroes. I think what they're doing is pretty dope. And on that note, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and thank you for listening to the GSMC Business News Podcast. It's powered by the GSMC Podcast Network. Make sure you're following us on Twitter. There's always something to discuss when it comes to business, so the Twitter page is always reposting some cool articles that you might want to check out, some different industry trends. When there's breaking news in business, we're definitely going to be reporting that information. So make sure you're following us on our social media sites. Make sure you're checking out the other episodes, the other podcast networks as well that we have. We have, the TV, we have Love. It's a few different things. I love our sports one. So shout out to the GSMC Sports Podcast. So make sure in your spare time you give us a listen. And thanks so much for all your reviews and all your kind words. Make sure you're like, sharing, and subscribe and all that good stuff, right? So again, thanks for listening. I'm your girl Moriah. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the GSMC Business News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type GSMC into your favorite podcast app to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.